Good morning. Welcome to the Weather Desk on this Monday, the 11th of May, the day after Mother's Day. I hope you took care of Mom. Certainly we owe moms so much for all they do. We had beautiful weather here in Hampton Roads. A lot of sunshine, temperatures in the low 80s for those highs yesterday. Spent some time out at the beach with my lovely wife. It was great, and a lot of other folks did as well. We're going to get into today's top weather headlines. We do that each and every weekday morning starting at 9 o'clock from the Weather Desk. Our super producer, Sarah Calloway, has put together some really interesting headlines and some pretty cool stuff from across the country. We'll start off with more wildfire news from the southeast U.S. We're talking about those fires we've been watching down in Florida, but there's new concerns growing down in the Florida Everglades. We'll show you the fires that are out there, kind of how the smoke is behaving around those wildfires as well. And then we're going to talk about ember casts and ember casting. You might go, I haven't heard about that before, but if you think about it, these wildfires generate these sparks and embers, and the winds can carry them. We'll explain how they can spread wildfires, and we'll look into that. In addition, we're dealing with drought. This is sounding more and more like a broken record. We've been looking at it. We've talked about impacts to farm and livestock, which areas reservoirs are running low. There's snow droughts out in the western U.S. Many areas really do need the rain. And there's one group of gardeners and some farmers that are looking at other ways to cultivate crops or plants when it's this dry. We're talking about dry farming and kind of some techniques. So we'll get into that. Also, increasing local water temperatures. I mentioned I got out to the beach yesterday. Temperatures in the low 80s. It felt great on the sand. And more folks venturing out into the water because our coastal water temperatures are coming up. Taylor Stephenson has a closer look at that, how it's becoming more enjoyable now to get out into the water. We'll also talk about the tropical outlook. We're a couple weeks still away from the official start of the hurricane season, but I'll update you on that as well. Severe weather threat across the U.S. While we're in pretty good shape here locally in Hampton Roads, other parts of the country are going to watch, and there's even one area that's got an elevated risk of tornadoes, and it's not too far from us. I'll show you that coming up. And then we've got the weekend for Hampton Roads. Plenty to talk about. If you like the warmer weather, you'll need to hang in there for a day or two, but it is going to get much warmer, especially as we look out through the weekend and into next week. Flat out hot. That's where we're headed. All right, so that's a natural transition. We go from hot temperatures to some hot spots across the country. You see some of the various wildfires that are reported. We're going to get to these Georgia ones here in just a moment. But down here, basically covered up by that Miami word right there, the label on the map, there is a fire that we're going to talk about, or actually a cluster of fires in the Everglades. So over here, think about this. Here's Fort Lauderdale. Miami's down to the south, and we've got numerous wildfires out to the west of that area. Fire crews in Florida are working to put out this growing brush fire in the Everglades. Take a look. This is a look at the conditions in Broward County on Sunday. So far, more than 5,000 acres have burned, and the flames are 20% contained. The thick black smoke has been seen for miles, and several roads have been closed as crews work to keep the flames from spreading to nearby homes. Now, I want to take a look at this, and again, I mentioned some of the smoke out there. That's been an issue. It's been drifting around, very intense. We also have these fires in Georgia. Firefighters have been battling two massive wildfires for weeks. That work, it's finally paying off. The Pineland Road fire, which sparked in Clinch County, has burned more than 32,000 acres. The good news, it's now 70% contained. The Highway 82 fire in Brantley County has burned more than 22,000 acres and is 90% contained. All right, as we take a look, I wanted to come back to the smoke and show you kind of the outlook here. You see those wildfires again in the Everglades west of Fort Lauderdale. There's Miami. There's a few more down a little farther to the south as well. But we pay super close attention to how the winds kind of shift and blow around, because not only do you have the smoke, which can be a huge irritant and a health concern, especially when it blows into densely populated urban areas like Miami. We're going to see some of that smoke wafting in that general direction through the day tomorrow. That can be a concern. but those winds can also move embers and help spread the wildfires. Now, this phenomena that helps these wildfires spread so quickly, it is known as ember casts or ember casting. Monica Woods explains.
When we think of the worst wildfires, a lot of us imagine a crown fire ripping through the treetops. But deadly fires don't always look like this. Some of the deadliest fires feature something called ember cast. High wind can carry embers miles away from the flames. When the embers fall, even homes with good defensible space can catch fire. It can happen fast, sometimes faster than the authorities can warn you. If you see smoke blowing over your head or embers start falling around you, don't wait to be told. It's time to go.
That's pretty scary. All right. Well, next, how farmers across the country are adjusting their approach to farming as dry conditions persist. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We're going to take a look at some of the wet weather that's falling right now across much of the Commonwealth of Virginia here. You can see showers light to moderate. There are some heavier pockets, so especially into West Virginia and back over the Blue Ridge here out in the western parts of Virginia. For Hampton Roads, we've been dry so far. We'll take a little closer look. I got to tell you, though, this rain off to the north and west really beneficial because last week, while we were hit with heavy rain last Thursday, we picked up about 1.5 inches of rain in Norfolk, down across parts of northeast North Carolina. There were some areas about 2 inches of rain that fell. So that was so beneficial, but areas north and west really missed out. So this time they're getting more of that off to the north and west, and I'll have more on the local outlook coming up. What I want to focus on right now is the drought monitor. You can see some of these areas getting the rain this morning. They are in extreme drought, so this is beneficial. Severe drought for our immediate area, moderate drought down to the south. And again, these areas needing the rain, they're getting it. A lot of them are this morning. Now, as we turn our attention down to the south, I mentioned the Everglades fire there. There's dry conditions there off the coast west of Miami and Fort Lauderdale. It's exceptional, the drought for North Florida and South Georgia. Again, we talked about those Georgia fires there. So firefighters battling not only the flames, but the fact that the ground is so dry. Out to the west, we're going to talk about a different situation. Again, the snow drought in Colorado. I've been talking about this for months, really weeks, and it's now, as you start to add up all the times, it's literally been months that they've been dealing with that, and very dry conditions across Utah. So as we take a look at Utah specifically, the drought conditions have forced one community garden to turn to something called dry farming. Julia Sander reports.
great.
What really makes a plant great? The soil, the leaves. Here in Utah, it's their resilience.
Hottest and driest winter on record. So I think we have to challenge the assumption that every time you go to turn on the faucet, there's going to be water there.
Giles Larson with Wasatch Community Gardens has been studying how to grow food without any irrigation after planting. It's called dry farming.
There are certain varieties that are just tough, and they just shoot those roots down fast and access whatever moisture is being stored in the soil, even if the surface of the soil looks dry.
This is their second year trying this method. Last year, about 80% of their trial crops died, but the 20% that did survive put on new growth, flowered, and fruited.
So 2 feet below us right now, it's like super wet.
They're still figuring out what works.
Get your plants in the ground sooner and established sooner so that they're accessing that water. And then when things get hot, they're ready for the long haul.
But for most people, just being more water wise is a good start.
It's important to remember that resources are limited, that we all get a little share of those resources, and the more judicious and conservative we are with those resources, the more there are to go around.
At their annual spring plant sale, James Loomis says they'll have varieties that they breed and grow in their gardens for those who want to conserve water but still plant. For the community gardens, they already use water-wise practices, so the drought hasn't hit them too hard.
You know, being a grower who's been growing here for decades, like a lot of us we're ready for that. We're rolling with the punches.
At the trial site, they've got tomatoes and potatoes surrounded by wallow water, keeping an eye on the temperature and the amount of water underground.
Gardening has always been a difficult game.
But they say it's not about reinventing the wheel, and instead coming up with innovative ways to save.
All right, we're next going to take a quick break, but when we come back, the temperature's starting to tick up across Hampton Roads, but what about water temperatures? When it will finally feel nice enough to take a dip in the ocean. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. With a little over a month until summer, temperatures are starting to get warmer and warmer. But as Taylor Stephenson explains, the water temperatures are still catching up.
With the days becoming noticeably warmer and the unofficial start of summer getting closer, you may be thinking about spending some time at the beach soon. But you may want to wait just a little longer before jumping into the Atlantic Ocean. During the spring months, the water is still on the chilly side. Average Virginia Beach water temperatures sit around the mid-60s in May. By June, the ocean finally starts to feel more comfortable, warming up to an average of 72 degrees. The warmest water of the year arrives in July and August, when average temperatures peak around 79 degrees. Even into September, the ocean stays fairly warm in the mid-70s before gradually cooling through the fall months. One big reason the ocean takes so long to warm up is that water has a higher specific heat than land. This means that it takes more solar radiation to heat bodies of water than the nearby soil or sand. That's why we can still have cool ocean waters even after several warm spring days. So if you're heading to the beach soon, just remember, the air may feel like summer, but the water is still catching up. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, Taylor, let's take a look at where we sit right now. We have buoy data coming in, and the lower part of the Chesapeake Bay around 64 degrees for a current water temperature. You notice the Atlantic 59. It's a little bit warmer than that from day to day, but occasionally we get some cool upwelling, which also drops the water temperatures a little bit there near the ocean front. So just sharing that with you. Note the winds picking up, gusts to 30 knots out on the ocean and 25-knot winds on the bay. That's why small craft advisories are up, and we just saw from that live sky view that the wave action is picking up there at the ocean front. All right, we're going to turn our attention from just the water temperatures right here, but I want to show you what's going on down in the Gulf and back across the Caribbean and around the Bahamas. You can see those water temperatures are warmer and getting up above 80 degrees. Remember, that is really the key sea surface temperature for tropical development with tropical systems. And I thought, we're talking water temperatures here, still plenty cool, but some of those tropical hot zones, they're starting to warm up in terms of the water temperatures, and the hurricane season just a couple weeks away. So thought we'd take a quick early look. There's a little unsettled weather across the Gulf. We'll get into the radar here and talk about a severe weather threat along the Gulf Coast region. Down across the Caribbean, just about clear as a bell. Few clouds right around. You can see right around Cuba there, but most of the Caribbean very quiet, and it's quiet across the Atlantic basin. So at this point, no tropical activity expected over the coming week. Here's a look at some of those storms down to the south. They are rolling along. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the severe weather outlook and the week ahead for Hampton Roads. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. It's good to have you with us. I want to talk now about the severe weather potential where it's raining right now. Some heavier storms rolling across the northern Gulf. As you can see, the rain pretty widespread out to our west. So we'll get into all of this. Let's start off by looking at the southeast U.S. because there's an area here where we could see some severe weather and back across the southeast coast down through the Florida coast as well. This area here, though, pretty intense rainfall occurring with an area of low pressure that is spinning. You can see that curl. That is excuse me, that is not a tropical system. That's just an area of low pressure kind of formed along a front there, and it's dragging a front with it. But very intense rainfall right now across the northern Gulf there to the southeast of Houston, kind of headed towards the Louisiana coastline. So this is an area where there could be severe storms later today. It's just a marginal risk, a level 1 threat. We can talk about the different types of severe weather you would expect, but again, it's just a slightly elevated area from west of Pensacola through Mobile Bay, back through Biloxi, and then of course New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and all the way out to areas east of Lake Charles. As we take a look over along the Florida ocean side from north of Miami around Fort Lauderdale up through Daytona Beach and Jacksonville, that level 1 threat extends up through Savannah, all of coastal Georgia, really southeast Georgia, and coastal sections of South Carolina, and then for North Carolina up through Wilmington and up towards the Emerald Isle. Now, as we look here, the tornado potential is greatest from around Wilmington down through Myrtle Beach, Charleston, and just off to the north of Savannah and northeast of Savannah. It's just a slightly elevated risk, but there is a slight risk that we could see a spin-up tornado or two down there. Wind damage, more of a threat. You could see some gusty winds in excess of 60 miles per hour, so some damaging wind gusts potentially, and then along the Gulf Coast, again, Louisiana over to southern Mississippi and Mobile Bay there in Alabama. So that's what's going on right now with the wind potential. Hail potential really confined here along the southeast U.S. coastline. It's not looking too bad along the Gulf Coast. Now, severe storms for tomorrow, different area. Again, for today, those areas I just showed you, those are the only places really identified by the Storm Prediction Center. But tomorrow, Chicago, that's my kind of town, Chicago is, and they've got a chance for severe storms there. St. Louis also dealing with it. KC down towards Wichita, level 1 threat. Wind, hail. You don't see a tornadic threat there tomorrow. And then as we look ahead to Wednesday, there could be some stronger storms across West Virginia, southwestern parts of Pennsylvania, including Pittsburgh, southeast Ohio, and the western parts of Virginia, including Roanoke and back through the Blue Ridge. So that's a severe weather outlook over the coming days. As I mentioned, we do have this rain that is overtaking the central and western parts of Virginia. Light showers starting to show up now down the peninsula. We're still dry south side. That light sweep showing some of those showers drifting by. Again, the rain is not heavy, but it's out there. Williamsburg up to West Point, areas out to the west. Once you get out towards Barnett's and Sherwood Forest, back out through Petersburg, those areas could see some showers. We're seeing some of that around Dutton, back over towards Cardinal. These areas off to the north, Gloucester, you're getting the rain right now. And again, it's all beneficial. This is light. This stuff's moving along, and we'll see a few showers. But again, most of the south side in North Carolina will have to wait until we get into the afternoon. Now, our futurecast here is underplaying it a little bit initially. You see how the showers fill in. And I'd say by noon, we might even see a few sprinkles here, kind of edging down towards Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, the Monitor Merrimack. But most of the rain, the better chances will be to the north and west. As we get into the afternoon, that's when we have a better chance across the south side, mid to late afternoon. And by evening, it's pulling away. Skies clearing out nicely for tomorrow. A lot of sunshine. Temperatures getting back up into the upper 60s. We'll be in the upper 70s by Wednesday. And there'll be another round of wet weather coming up Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. Grass and tree pollen is moderate today. The rain should help knock that down a bit, but the winds kind of kick up what's out there, so mold is also low. You see the skies growing darker over Hampton. This is a different Thompson Creek Window Company sky view. Earlier, the ceiling was pretty high and it was pretty bright out there, but now those clouds thickening up as showers are working down the peninsula. North winds 13 miles per hour at the airport. Pressure is falling. You see, again, that chance for a few stray showers to develop. Overnight lows down around 52. Again, evening showers, and then tomorrow back up to 69, very pleasant, mostly sunny. As for the rest of the 7-day forecast, we'll enjoy Wednesday, Thursday, a chance for showers early in the morning. They should be done by 8 or 9 o'clock. Friday, 75, my pick of the week right there, looking great. And then warmer for your weekend, back in the mid to upper 80s. More folks will be heading out to the beaches. I want to remind you can always get the latest news, weather, traffic, all on the go with the 13 News Now mobile app. Thanks so much for joining us here from the Weather Desk. Again, I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. We'll see you next time.